This woman got pulled back into a wedding invitation twice and then got lectured about etiquette over lattes. But wait until you hear why.
Imagine being invited to a wedding, then quietly uninvited, then re-invited by someone else, and then confronted in a coffee shop by the bride herself, who looks you dead in the eye and says, "Can't you take a hint?" That is where this story begins, and I promise you that is not even close to where it ends. Because underneath all of this wedding drama, underneath the passive aggression and the manipulation and the social maneuvering, there was a grief story that nobody saw coming, and it changed everything.
She got pulled back in after being cut and then got confronted about it. The audacity of this bride is already off the charts.
Let's back up and set the scene properly because the details here really do matter. Our woman in this story, we will call her Claire, is living in Australia with her partner Martin. Martin is a successful professional, part of his company's leadership group, well respected and well connected in his circle. Claire is also doing well. The two of them together have built a comfortable life. They are not people who need to be impressed, and they are not people who are easily rattled. So when Martin suggested a dinner out to meet his close friend Andy and Andy's fiancée Anna, Claire went in with an open heart. She was curious, friendly, ready to like these people. The dinner went well, at least on the surface. Conversation flowed, everyone laughed, and Andy even told Claire he hoped to see her at the wedding. She left that dinner feeling warmly toward both of them. She had no idea that one of the people sitting across from her that night already wanted her gone. Martin received a wedding invitation addressed to him and guest, which is standard enough, and he accepted for both of them. Simple, done, sorted. But then, about a week later, he came home with news that made Claire's stomach drop just a little. Anna had called him, not Claire, Martin, to explain that she had miscalculated the venue capacity. They were over their guest limit, and would Claire mind terribly being cut from the list? Anna, notably, was too embarrassed to make this call herself. She sent Martin to do it. Now here is where Claire shows you exactly who she is as a person. She did not get defensive. She did not make it awkward. She and Martin had only just met Andy and Anna, so being one of the guests trimmed for space seemed genuinely plausible. She told Martin to pass along her understanding and her best wishes. She let it go completely with grace. Then Andy called her directly. He told her he had not known about any venue issue and that some of his older relatives were now declining due to health concerns, so there was space after all, and he wanted to personally invite her. A formal invitation arrived in the mail, her name on the envelope, everything proper. She accepted. Of course she accepted. She had been invited twice now, once by the couple together and once by the groom himself. What reasonable person would say no to that?
2 invitations, 2 acceptances, and somehow Claire is the one who ends up being told she has no manners. I need a moment.
The coffee shop ambush happened not long after. Claire ran into Anna while they were both out shopping, and Anna suggested they grab a coffee together. It sounded friendly, casual, a nice coincidence. They got their drinks, they sat down, and then Anna looked at her and said, "Can't you take a hint?" Claire asked what she meant. Anna told her it was obvious she did not want Claire at her wedding. And then she went further. She told Claire that she was clearly unfamiliar with wedding etiquette and with how things are done in this country, and that the polite thing to do when you receive an obligatory invitation is to decline it and send a present anyway. In Anna's version of events, the second invitation was never meant to be accepted. It was a social formality, a performance of politeness, and Claire had failed to perform her part correctly.
Claire went home and told Martin everything. And Martin, to his credit, connected a dot that made the whole picture a little more sinister. A work friend of Anna's had already approached him and said essentially the same thing, that Anna had only invited Claire to be polite to the boss's girlfriend, and that Claire should return the politeness by declining and staying home. This was coordinated. This was not one woman having a bad day and saying something she regretted over coffee. This was a campaign, quiet and deliberate, with Anna at the center of it, and people around her carrying the message. Claire and Martin talked it over at length. She was not comfortable going to this wedding anymore, and honestly, who could blame her? The question she kept turning over was whether she owed this couple a gift. Traditional etiquette would say, yes, that when you decline a wedding invitation after accepting, you send something. But Claire felt used. She felt like she had been invited specifically so that Martin's partner, the partner of someone senior at their company, would feel obligated to send a generous gift. And skipping the event while sending the gift anyway felt like rewarding bad behavior, like quietly agreeing that yes, you can treat me this way and I will still give you something nice.
This is the moment where most people would just go quiet and send a toaster. Not Claire. And honestly, good.
Her family had opinions, naturally. Her sister, who Claire describes with tremendous affection as her evil sister, suggested a donation to a charity of Andy's choice. Polite, generous in spirit, and giving Anna absolutely nothing to unwrap. The same sister also floated a less serious option involving a fake positive test result and a social media post of Claire doing fabulous things on the day of the wedding, which, I have to say, has a certain artistic elegance to it. Her brother was more blunt. He doubted Andy and Anna would even make it to the altar and offered to give Andy an IOU for a present at his next wedding. Claire's family clearly were having the time of their lives with this situation, but Claire was still carrying real tension underneath the humor. She did not know what the right thing to do was. She had been raised by a mother who was gracious in the face of outrageous behavior, polite without being a pushover, and Claire wanted to honor that. She just could not figure out what grace looked like here, in this specific, strange, painful situation. Then came the update that nobody expected, least of all Claire. Martin sat down with Andy. They talked, really talked, the kind of conversation that pulls back the curtain on everything. And what came out of that conversation reframed the entire story. Anna had been extremely close to Martin's late wife. She had seen this woman as an older sister, someone she loved and grieved deeply. And now here was Martin, moving forward with his life, bringing a new partner to dinners, to weddings, into spaces that had once belonged to someone Anna mourned. Having Claire at that wedding in her friend's place was simply too much for her to bear. Anna knew she had acted badly. Andy confirmed that she was ashamed of the things she had said in that coffee shop, ashamed of the way she had handled all of it. The immature maneuvering, the social pressure campaign, the comment about etiquette and knowing how things are done in this country, she knew. She was not proud of any of it. The grief underneath had not made it okay, but it did make it human.
The whole story just shifted. Anna was not a villain. She was a grieving woman who handled something painful in a really ugly way. That it's different.
Claire made a choice. She chose to forgive. Not because she owed it to Anna, not because what happened was acceptable, but because she understood now, and understanding changed things. She would not be attending the wedding. She would not be sending a gift. That chapter was simply closed, but there were no hard feelings, or at least she was working toward that. The harder piece of news was about Martin. He and Claire were no longer together, not because of the wedding situation directly, but because of what the situation revealed. When they looked honestly at who Martin had prioritized through all of this and who Claire had turned to for support, they realized it was not each other. They were not each other's person, not really, and the stress of this strange few weeks had made that impossible to ignore. Claire cried a little. She said she would be okay. And reading the way she describes it, you believe her completely. Here's what I keep thinking about when I turn this story over in my mind. Claire came into it asking a fairly simple etiquette question, and she left it having navigated something genuinely complex and human. She never got the revenge arc. There was no dramatic confrontation where Anna was exposed, no moment where Claire got to stand triumphant while everyone else looked on in shock. Instead, she got something harder and more real, which was the truth. A messy, sad, understandable truth about grief and loyalty and how people sometimes behave when they are protecting something tender inside themselves. She also got her family. Her evil sister planning elaborate charitable donations and contemplating taking up public cackling. Her brother's deadpan prediction that turned out to be wrong in letter but not entirely in spirit. Her youngest child getting sent home sick from school. The two of them spending days on the couch in their pajamas. watching a mystery show where someone gets murdered by an exploding portaloo, which is, honestly, the kind of healing energy the universe occasionally provides exactly when you need it.
She came in asking if she was wrong for skipping a gift. She left with a breakup, a forgiveness, and a couch full of pajamas and bad TV. Life is wild.
Claire ended up with something that looks a lot like dignity. She did not send a gift to people who treated her poorly. She did not attend a wedding where she was not genuinely wanted. She forgave someone who had been cruel to her once she understood the pain behind it. And she walked away from a relationship that was not giving her what she needed. Without bitterness, just clarity. That is not a revenge story in the traditional sense. But there is something deeply satisfying about watching a person refuse to be small, refuse to be used, and refuse to stay somewhere they are not truly seen, all while remaining exactly the kind of person their mother would have been proud of. If this story landed with you, drop a comment below and tell me what you would have done in her position. Would you have sent the gift anyway? Would you have shown up to the wedding just to make a point? Or would you have walked away exactly the way she did? I read every single one and I want to know.